It's equal rights to every child and what basically we need to understand on that particular aspect. Now we have our question of the day and we're asking you, do you think that the government is doing enough to protect the children in schools? Do you think that the government is doing enough to protect the children in schools? Of course, you can get me on my handle on X, that is at Remmy Majala. The hashtag is Morning Vibe. Of course, our handles on Facebook, on X is at K24 TV, and our WhatsApp line is right there on your screens. And right before we proceed into this conversation, I'm asking you, have you registered for the Stand Chat Marathon? I told you I'll be going with my colleagues. You know, they're there, they're ready. I mentioned to you, we have Clarence, we have Eddie, we have Brenda, we have Kasavuli, we have my director, Dan. You know, I'm choosing the 10 kilometers. I want to challenge myself for that matter. I'm not sure what they're doing, but I'm assuming 10 or 5. But you can be able to register, and of course you can do that on the website, that is www.nairobimarathon.com, and they're aiming to register 23,000 runners, and it's all for a good cause. You know, something that you can be part of, something that you can find you know, yourself doing out of, you know, just having fun with your friend. It's a good vibe, it's a good thing for your family, it's a good thing with you and your colleagues. So go on, get more information, and if it's always been your dream to be a runner or to be discovered, trust me, there's a track record of Kenyan athletes who have been on this particular platform and they've gotten their cut, or rather recognition, through running this particular marathon. So there you go, register. www.nairobimarathon.com is where it's at. Right, so we begin this conversation. And our guest today is Abdallah Kasim. He is donor and partnership relationship specialist, and he's a civil rights activist. Like I mentioned, our question of the day is, do you think the government is doing enough to protect children in schools? Right, so just a brief update. We've had the Endarasha fire, the unfortunate fire. Yesterday, the president mentioned that he will be donating $2 million, and he vowed to take care of the funeral expenses of the victims of the same, right? And now, unfortunately, also, that is on Saturday, we had Cataloni High School students who were picked from the institution by parents after Saturday's night inferno that burned down the boys' dormitory, and the dormitory hosted 193 students, right? So the school confirmed that the school is not closed, but the students were picked up for basically counseling, and they would be back to school on Tuesday. So that whole dome, especially, it was mostly the boys' dormitory, it was, you know, razed down by fire, and it housed 193 students. Now, this is not the only unfortunate incident. We've had other schools, you know, that of course, you know, were on fire right after Endarasha, almost to the point where it is, you know, absurd. You know, we've had Isiolo girls, Isiolo boys. It's just an absurd case of a series of fires. And what we understand is Endarasha is supposed to be back in operation, you know, because of the national exams. We're not sure if the children are psychologically prepared for that. But given your perspective, Abdallah, thank you you know, once of course, you know, for coming on this show. I did not tell you thank you for coming. You know, what's your perspective on all this?
First, Remy, thank you for having me on your show. I don't think we are taking this issue of fires in our schools seriously. And this, I mean, from the duty bearers, the government. To date, put it to perspective. To date, we've lost 202 children since 2001. We've lost 147 people in 2015. That in totality, that is about 216 against 202 fire, you know, deaths out of fire in our schools. But we put a lot of emphasis on terrorism, we put a lot of funds, we put a lot of mechanisms to fight terror, but we don't want to put a lot of funds and emphasis on fighting, I mean, preventing our children from dying in our schools. So I think we are not taking this serious. And I think now with this latest incidents, I think we need to take it serious.
Okay. You know, we had Education Minister back in 2008, that was Simon Gary, who came up with the Safety Standards Manual, which is supposed to be a guideline for every school to date, right? It's there, it can only be added upon, improved upon because of changing times and the like. And the particular protocols that the schools are supposed to have, like, you know, fire extinguishers, emergency exits, a drawn up, you know, outline of a map of how you're supposed to navigate in cases of a fire and the like. But we still seem to have very many schools that do not adhere or even have lived up to the standard or even know about the manual for that matter. You know, so for someone who's worked in policy, who continues to work in policy in Kenya and in different countries, you know, what do you call this? How can this be navigated? It is
a lack of interest, a lack of the willingness by the policymakers to make sure that the policies that we come up with are implemented. You said this is about 2008 to date. Nobody has touched it. Some schools, you'll be surprised, don't know about the existence of this policy or of this safety manual. That tells you that nobody wants to take it to schools to see it being implemented. I blame our leaders. I blame the Ministry of Education because they're the ones to make sure that the school administrators are aware of this policy, and then they put measures to see that it is implemented. I mean, if you want to implement a policy, for example, you will say that as a administrator of the school, a principal or whoever, if we don't have that committee set up, you don't have this policy implemented, there are repercussions, either through promotion or interdiction. But in this country, we do these things just to make the public happy that there's something being done. For example, on this school fire incidences, and this policy is there for the parents, for the society to know that at least we can sleep easy. We have a policy on how to protect our children in our schools, but we don't follow up to see this thing being done. So I think, first of all, the duty rests with the government. The government must implement this policy. But let me tell you something. I was surprised when I didn't see the president or the deputy president on the very day or the next day after the incident visiting the school. I think the
deputy president was there.
Yeah, but probably after, days after. This was a major incident in the country. So this shows you how we don't take this issue seriously.
On the same day, though.
On the same day?
On the same day, yes, yes. I did see that because he did speak, you know, at the venue, at the school, you know. But that mentioned, Abdallah, we have a joke in the corporate world where they say that policies are made on earth and implemented in heaven. Yes. And there's a very big aspect whereby there's a continuous policy in everything, right? Even with the contentious university funding model, the policies that are there and the policies that have been made that have not, you know, seen the light of day. And we have the same here, right? And we even had warning reports saying that our schools are not up to par, especially when it comes to, you know, the boarding, you know, aspect, how the dorms are, they're, you know, full to beyond capacity, you know, they're not well done. You know, in the Russia, for example, it was wooden, you know,
beds.
Yes, and even the walls also, the structure is made of wood. You know, it's not even supposed to be something we're supposed to be discussing right now. So what happens when we have policies that are supposed to be seen but not supposed to be, quote unquote, implemented as they should be, especially in society in a period like in future, because this is the future of policies that we are living in that have not been implemented?
You can imagine this is happening in Kenya, a country hosting the United Nations headquarters, the 4th in the world. This is a country that has ratified the United Convention on the rights of the child. This is a country that boasts of the most progressive constitution with our whole Article 53 dedicated to the child, how we need to protect the child, safety of the child. But this is a country where we still have in 2024 children dying because the structure in the school was that pathetic. It is a wooden structure. The beds are wood. The doors are closed from the outside when the policy says that they should, I mean from the inside when the policy says we shouldn't have a door that is opening from inside but outside to allow for escape. In a country that with all those policies, the children died under their beds because apparently they didn't know, or they've never been taught about you know, emergency safety. What happens if there's a fire breakout? What do you need to do? You know, how to react to it. They didn't know, so their reaction was go under the bed and hide. So it is absurd. But this is not strange to Africa, because in Africa, this is how we behave. Every time a leader comes into office, he will bring in a new policy. They will say this, like for example, you just spoken about the funding model for the universities. Did the current government ask themselves, did we have a policy before this? And what can we do to improve what we had going forward? Instead, they came up with a whole new structure, disregarding the old structure. And you can tell with the chaos that come with it. Every student I've had is complaining that this system is biased, it is unfavorable. Whether you are rich or poor, it is unfavorable to all of them. But why did we have to bring it? Because a new government must do something new. I remember when I was in the university, somebody was making a speech and he said in Africa, if you can't change anything in a school, for example, then change the gate. Remove it from where it was, at least people will remember. So here in Africa, we have to continuously do things new or start something new so that you can be remembered. So the current government is coming up with these policies, for example, on the school funding, you know, the SHIFA, they call it, for example, on health, disregarded NHIF. Why? Yeah, because you have to call it something new. You know, people will remember me that when I was a minister or when I was a president, you know, in Kenya during that time, I'm the one who killed NHIF and brought SHIFA. So it's not about what is in SHIFA. It is not about what is wrong with NHIF. It is what I'm doing currently so that you can remember me. So we need to implement policies. When we enact these policies, let us follow up to the implementation. Let us be serious with what we say we are doing. Otherwise, we are not going to stop our children from dying in our schools.
Right. Now, we have the whole aspect of, you know, the mitigation, like you mentioned, of what we already have, and the psychosocial discussion of our children. The children are, of course, not, you know, in a good mental space, especially having gone through different fires. Even hearing about it, even if your school is not affected, it doesn't place you in a good, you know, frame of mind. But we don't see how much, you know, counseling goes into it. We don't have particular reports that say, okay, this is how, you know, the child's mind is. This is how much they can do. Are they ready for the national exams? It's third term. Fires were said, of course, and have been seen to be more in the third term, because they were saying that the children are afraid of the national exams. But have we understood why, for example? they are afraid, you know, and then the cases of indiscipline on the rise. I even have a particular, you know, circular here that was done, I think that was 2021, you know, and it was by Dr. Belio R. Kipsang, Principal Secretary. And this circular basically was to, you know, it was to help, this is last week, and it's to all heads of institution, and it's about the security and safety in learning institutions. And one of the aspects highlighted here is the indiscipline aspects, to make sure that this roll call, basically what's in this manual here, that's why it's on the table. It's a very big manual. It's heavy and quite detailed. But how do you think the schools are even looking into the psychosocial dynamic of our children? Because it doesn't seem to be clear at all.
You know, I think our children are going to school because they have to go to school. The government builds schools because it is their responsibility to build schools so that children can go to school. They anticipate that we'll give birth to some children, those children will need schools. But they don't take it as a priority. I say that why? Because if you have a school, if you are a student and you've seen your colleagues die in that school last week, and then you are expected to come back this week or next week, 2 weeks later, to assume life is normal, like nothing ever happened. I mean, this is a tragedy. It's extremely uncomfortable. And why we have to send the children back to school immediately? Because in this country, we put a prime on results. A child is born to give results, and that's what the Kenyan parents believe. And the Minister of Education believes that. It's everything about results. It's not about how do we get the results. What are the conditions under which these children are to get results? It's not that people fear exams. All of us did exams. Children will do exams, but we must make the environment friendly for them to be willing to sit for those exams. I mean, we have two systems running in this country. We have IGC, for example, and we have the local system. Why is it that we don't have problems with those other students? Those are the Kenyans. They're Kenyans. They are not foreigners studying in Kenya. They are Kenyans studying foreign education in our country, the foreign systems. But why don't we have problems with them? People often say that those children are pampered. They're not pampered. My children were privileged to go to those schools. And my relatives are also privileged to go to the Kenyan schools. So I've gone to these schools. But the chaos that we have in government public schools and the pressure we give children, we don't listen to our children. We don't see them as human beings who also have ideas. I mean, they can work with us to improve on the environment. You find a child waking up at 4 to be in school at 5 to do what? To read. And then this child will read until again maybe 6, and then spend another 1 hour on the road going home, sleeping all the way, and then with some loads of homework to do, and then sleep again around 10 or 11, and then we expect that child to continue with the routine again tomorrow. And then we say, this is the best system working for us. And parents believe that. But you know why we are doing all these things? Not for the sake of the child, not for the safety and good of the child, but for the good of the teacher, who is receiving 5,000, 3,000 as a motivation.
So is our education system designed to churn out, like you said, results mostly, but not designed to create the character or to mold the character, and of course allow them to have a peace of mind, in things. For example, sensitization. You said some of the children were hiding under the beds, because they would not know how to maneuver. You know, before, I remember when I was in high school, we had drills, you know, that allowed you to know what to do in the case of a fire, which should be the case, you know, for most schools. You need to be aware and sensitized. This is what happens, this is emergency exit, this is supposed to be what it is. But do you think children are given also the voice? They
don't have the voice.
You know.
They don't have the voice. I mean, our children are engineered just to receive instructions from us and implement our instructions. We don't give them a chance in every step of the way so that they can say, Dad or teacher, I hear you. This homework is good, but it's too much because of the time I have to finish it. We don't give our children that opportunity. In private schools, in the IGC system, you hear children talking, giving feedback to these teachers. The teachers are their friends. You know, if they have issues, they can approach them. Our schools, our teachers are kings. They are powerful people. I don't know if you've gone to these schools and you see how a teacher treats a parent. They are, when parents, they line up to see principals in schools, and they are talked down by those teachers. They are supposed to worship them. So if you're a parent, you cannot come to a school and tell the principal that I think in this dormitory we have too many children. It is crowded. Can we find a way of decongesting the dormitory? You can't say that if you're a parent or a visitor to the school, because the principal is the king of the school, and his word is what rules. And it goes like that. So we have a problem. I mean, we have to accept that we have a problem in this country and quickly address it. And put all these millions I'm seeing and billions I'm seeing wasted. I've just been reading your newspaper this morning, where governors are being accused of using, for example, 235 million for Kisumu, for example, to pay litigation, to pay lawyers. And when you check in these countries, you'll find that they have a legal department with the attorney, county attorney, and list of lawyers there that they can use to go to court and represent their cases. But they still want to use that money outside. This is money that we can channel to improve on our schools. But do you know what is happening in schools? It is the parents to build dormitories. If there's a school fire, then it is us, Kenyans, to do the Harambee thing. You know, the government has said, you take care of your schools, do your Harambees. They are no longer state schools. The schools we have in this country are almost like the parent schools. So the parents have to construct dormitories. That's why if we have a need for an extra dormitory so that we can decongest, then we force this on our parents to build. It's no longer the government, the county government, it's no longer the national government priority to build schools. So our government should take the responsibility. You are a taxpayer, you've done your due, you've paid your taxes, let the government build schools. Let them, so that we can have infrastructure that can accommodate our children. If you go to, even to primary schools right now, the classes are crowded. Desks are put close to each other. They can't, the policy says that there must be, I don't know, there are some spaces that if there is an emergency or something, the learner can quickly move out, or even when there's no emergency.
The quality of sitting.
Yeah, not even when there's emergency. People should have that, you know, the comfort.
Yeah, there's a quality of sitting which is highlighted.
Of being in school. Our children are like a bunch of cabbages being sent to the market. So the rows, there are no rows actually. The desks are, they have to jump all over, you know, over the desks to get out of class.
I see. Now, on that thought, Abdallah, we're taking a short break. We'll be back with more of this conversation. Do stay with us.
relationships.
Kumbe mama, ulikuwa unafikiria kuolewa tena? Yaani unijali hata kidogo, wewe ni mbaya.
Dilemmas and complexities of life.
Mwanamke hamhitaji mwanaume ili aweze kuwa na furaha.
Love.
Vedika, kiukweli